You know what's fascinating? Studies show that workplace wellness programs, those fruit bowls and gym memberships companies love to tout, might actually be doing diddly squat for employee mental health. But there's so much more to this story than meets the eye.
That's really interesting timing since we're seeing record levels of workplace burnout. What's the real story behind these wellness initiatives?
Well, the data shows that nearly half of all workers are struggling with burnout right now. And here's what's really surprising. Many of them are showing up to work every day, appearing totally fine on the surface.
So you're telling me we could be sitting next to colleagues who are burning out and not even realize it?
Exactly right. And that's what makes this whole conversation about workplace well-being so crucial. The World Health Organization actually defines burnout as a syndrome resulting from chronic workplace stress that hasn't been properly managed.
That definition really hits home, especially the part about energy depletion and feeling mentally distant from your job.
And here's what's really eye-opening. Organizations are spending massive amounts trying to address this. Each time they need to replace someone who leaves, it costs them around £45,000 on average.
Those numbers are staggering when you think about it, though I imagine some companies might look at that and still think it's cheaper than implementing comprehensive well-being programs.
Well, that's where the productivity data comes in. Research shows that employees who feel their well-being is supported are up to 20% more productive. We're talking about real bottom-line impact here.
That makes me think about how the whole approach to workplace well-being has evolved. It's not just about work-life balance anymore, is it?
Not at all, and this is where it gets really interesting. The whole concept has shifted from seeing work and life as separate things to balance, to recognizing that work is actually an integral part of our overall well-being.
That's quite a philosophical shift when you think about it.
It really is, and it ties into these 8 different types of wellness they've identified: emotional, financial, social, spiritual, occupational, physical, intellectual, and environmental. What's fascinating is how they all interconnect in the workplace.
You know what strikes me about those categories? How many of them are actually within an employer's control to influence?
Exactly, take that spiritual wellness component. We're not talking about religion here, but rather about having a sense of purpose and meaning in your work. That's something organizations can absolutely influence.
Though I imagine some companies might still be stuck in that old mindset of just offering perks and benefits.
Well, that's what makes the recent research so interesting. Organizations that are really succeeding with well-being initiatives are taking a much more holistic approach. They're looking at everything from job autonomy to social capital, basically how connected people feel to their colleagues.
Speaking of social capital, that's become even more complex with remote work, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And you know what's interesting about that? There was a story just a few months ago about the former Asda boss claiming working from home isn't proper work. But the research shows it's not that simple.
That must be creating some real challenges for organizations trying to figure out their well-being strategies.
It really is, and here's what's fascinating. The most successful organizations are the ones that recognize there's no one-size-fits-all solution. They're looking at flexibility in broader terms than just working from home.
So, what are some of the practical ways organizations are making this work?
Well, some are implementing regular well-being check-ins. Others are creating dedicated well-being working groups led by employees. But what's really interesting is how they're measuring success. They're looking beyond just absence rates to things like team engagement and customer satisfaction.
That makes sense. If your employees aren't feeling well supported, it's bound to impact how they interact with customers.
And here's where leadership plays such a crucial role. The research shows that organizations where board members and senior leaders model well-being behaviors see much better results.
Though I imagine that's easier said than done in many organizations.
You're right, and that's why they recommend starting with some basic questions. Does the organization have a well-being strategy? Are we properly resourced? How clear are our mission and values?
Those sound like simple questions, but I bet they lead to some pretty complex discussions.
Exactly, and what's really interesting is how many organizations discover they need to completely rethink their approach when they start asking these questions. It's not just about adding a meditation app subscription to their benefits package.
So what do you think the future holds for workplace well-being?
Well, based on the trends we're seeing, I think we're going to see a much more integrated approach. Organizations are starting to understand that well-being isn't just a HR initiative. It needs to be woven into every aspect of how they operate.
That's quite a shift from the fruit bowl days.
It really is, and you know what's most encouraging? Organizations are starting to see tangible results when they get this right. Lower turnover, higher engagement, better customer satisfaction. It's becoming clear that well-being isn't just a nice to have anymore. It's a business imperative.
That's really the bottom line, isn't it? When organizations get well-being right, everybody wins.
Exactly, and I think that's what makes this such an exciting time in the workplace. We're finally moving beyond surface-level solutions to really addressing what makes people thrive at work. And that's something worth investing in. Thanks for listening to the Sharing Matters podcast. We'll be back next week to discuss more housing sector news and issues. Bye for now.